Yo, what's up? What's going on? What's good, everybody? We are checking in here for the Boxing Source Midweek Report, Wednesday, April 3rd, 2024. We have a number of things that are going on here in the sport of boxing. We got some action that's coming up on April 6th. You want to look forward to that. And, we got some updated news in reference to a big fight that's coming up in the summer, as you see with the title that's here on this thing. And we want to get into, of course, that particular fight and a little bit more that's going down in the sport of boxing. So, let's get right into it. I mean, seems like we got a little bit of an update on a big fight that's coming up for June. It's the summer, man, and we kind of dropped some news about this some time ago that this fight was going to take place, and that is, of course, Gervonta Tank Davis versus Frank Martin, and that will be there in the 135-pound division, the lightweight division. Two undefeated fighters there, and it was a fight that I was really looking forward to see these two competitors get at it. Of course, Frank Martin is a up and coming rising contender there in the lightweight division, and of course you got Tank Davis there as a multi-division world champion, one of the biggest stars in the sport of boxing, one of the more exciting fighters in the sport of boxing. And every time that Tank Davis pretty much like has a fight coming up, it gets people buzzing. And so this one here, when they said that it would be Tank versus Frank Martin, I was like, yeah, this is one fight that I'm definitely looking forward to. But apparently, looks like we got a couple of more details that may have dropped in reference to that fight. One, we got a location that's been pretty much hinted at there by Tank Davis, and that is Houston, Texas. And I'm like, that would be something to have a big event there in Houston, Texas. A big boxing event there in Houston, Texas. I know that there have been, a few big fight cards in Houston. But with Tank Davis has had, events in Atlanta, in Brooklyn, in Los Angeles, in Las Vegas, DC, of course. So folks were like saying, what would be next there for Tank Davis? Where would he, take his show on the road? And it looks like it's going to be in Houston. He kind of like dropped that hint on social media that it would be in Houston and that it would be the week after, I guess, what is it, Meg Thee Stallion or whatever it is, that was supposed to have a performance in Houston on June 15th. So it's looking like June 22nd for Tank Davis versus Frank Martin. Of course, we don't have the media release. You don't have the press release as of yet there for that particular bout, but with Tank Davis kind of like responded to a number of messages that were on social media in reference to the fight itself. That kind of like said like, hey, you know what? I'll drop some hints here and there as to what's going down. So that's what it's looking like. June 22nd, Houston, Texas. Gervonta Tank Davis in there against Frank Martin. Like I said, with Tank Davis as undefeated. What is it? 29-0. 29-0 with 27 of those wins by way of knockout, going up against Frank Martin at 18-0 with 12 wins by way of knockout. And it's going to be Southpaw versus Southpaw. That's going to be a little bit intriguing there for this one. And, like I said, it looks like, both of them have been in camp. Both of them have, been training, doing that thing because, hey, if it's going to be in June, hey, we're pretty much around that time. Here we are at the beginning of April. You would have, of course, the quote unquote 8-week camp or whatever it is. But, with a lot of these fighters, they, stay in shape and everything like that. So they've stayed in the gym there. You've seen Frank Martin over there in Texas, working out there over in the gym around the Dallas area. You've seen Gervonta Tank Davis working out in various, places around the country. So, I'm looking forward to seeing both of these guys in action in a big event there. And if it's going to be in Houston, Texas, and that's going to, get a number of the folks out there in the Texas area buzzing, particularly with Frank Martin, of course. While he's kind of like residing in that town in Indianapolis, he has been over or staying over in Dallas, for some time now. So he's kind of built himself up being there in Texas, for some time. Of course, he is under Man Down Promotions, headed by Errol Spence Jr. So he's looking to see about stepping up to get a big bout. Of course, coming off of his unanimous decision win over Artem Hartunyan, there where it seemed like some people felt like he kind of struggled through that particular fight. Well, when he got a unanimous decision and had knocked down Hartunyan in the last round of that particular bout, but you had that, and then of course his performance against Michel Rivera was one of the better performances of 2022, where he pretty much like nearly shut out Michel Rivera in that bout. So this will be his third consecutive bout facing an undefeated fighter, but it's definitely a big step up there for Frank Martin taking on Tank Davis there. I mean, yes, Frank Martin is southpaw. He's there at 29 years old at 5'8" with a reach of 68, going up against Tank Davis there at 29. Of course, southpaw himself, we know that, at listed at 5'5.5" with a reach of 67.5. And this is something where it's not going to be how some people say, hey, you got someone that's has a come forward style or whatever it is, like a number of fighters that Tank Davis has faced. This is going to be more of like the whole thing with how Hector Luis Garcia kind of like approached this bout. He was aggressive, and then kind of like was on the defensive a little bit in their fight that took place last year over in Washington D.C. That kind of like made for a good little scrap there, for a few rounds there before Tank Davis took over and ended up stopping Hector Luis Garcia. So I'm looking to see more of that here from Frank Martin. That is going to make it a really good bout. And it kind of like goes against a number of the so-called detractors there for Tank Davis. It says that he faces quote unquote certain fighters that have a certain style, kind of like trying to point out to his resume there. So here it's like, okay, you know what, I'm gonna show y'all how talented or how skilled I am by going up against someone like Frank Martin. So that is one thing that I'm definitely looking forward to here in this one, as Tank Davis, like he was saying on social media, it's looking like they're aiming for June 22nd over in Houston, Texas. And if it could be over there in the Toyota Center in Houston, Texas, it would make for a really big event out there in Houston. I know that there's a number of fight fans out there in Texas that will be really excited for a fight of that magnitude to be over there in Houston. But for me, it's more about this fight with these two styles. They're coming from Tank Davis, of course, that has one of the highest knockout ratios in the sport of boxing, is rated in the Boxing Source pound for pound top 10, going up against Frank Martin, who, of course, has risen up the ranks here in the lightweight division, is, one of the top rated contenders out there at lightweight. They should, have him where I think they got him at. He's rated at number 2 in the WBA rankings. So it will be Tank Davis here taking on the number 2 guy in the WBA rankings in Frank Martin. He's also ranked number 4 in the WBO. I think he had been ranked in the WBC, but they had removed him from the rankings, and he's there in the IBF currently at number 9. But he's been one of those guys to watch out for in the lightweight division that has an undefeated record, that's built up his record up there at lightweight, and then has those wins over the likes of Jackson Mariñez, Romero Duno, Michel Rivera, who recently moved up in weight and kind of like is ranked in the super lightweight division at this particular point. So you'll definitely want to see what happens in this upcoming fight that's going to be taking place in June, as it was looking like. So my thing is, it's like, hey, how are we going to get these guys to probably make a serious fight of this, because I feel like it's going to be something where a lot of people are going to be underestimating Frank Martin in this. I feel like this is going to be a really good bout, that is going to showcase both of these guys' abilities. I feel like it's going to happen where both of these guys are going to show their overall skill level, and that we have two fighters that I feel like they're going to show that they're amongst the top fighters in the lightweight division. Like for Frank Martin, I definitely feel like Frank Martin is among the top 10 there in the lightweight division. From a rating system, they got Frank Martin at number 4 over their BoxRec. They have him as a number 4 lightweight there in the division there. So I mean that kind of like shows like how heralded he could basically be there, at this particular point. So I'm like I said, I'm really seeing that this is going to be a good scrap between these two, and we'll get more information on it and how things are going to shape up on that. So like I said, Tank versus Frank Martin, coming up in June. Looks like it's going to be Houston, Texas, June 22nd. June 15th, that kind of like sometimes that's been they try to tie that date over for Juneteenth, basically Juneteenth weekend. So we probably could have had this bout on Juneteenth weekend or whatnot. But looking at what kind of like was mentioned is that it looks like the Toyota Center in Houston is booked there, for that particular date. So you can't necessarily have, at least this fight. They couldn't necessarily have this fight take place on that particular date. So they'll have to, push it back, because if I check this out, they got June 14th and 15th. Therefore, Meg Thee Stallion is going to be at the Toyota Center in Houston. So you couldn't have that Tank Davis fight, on that weekend. So it's saying, hey, the following weekend, June 22nd, that's the target date for Tank Davis versus Frank Martin. So that's what you got there in that particular aspect. So shout out for these two guys getting in. They've pretty much been in the gym for a good little minute, but they're going to be, really preparing for this particular fight. And, with this, most likely, of course, being on Amazon Prime pay-per-view, you're going to see a number of, what I would say, programs that will kind of like focus on these two fighters as they prepare for that bout that comes up this summer. So you're gonna see, like we saw here for that last pay-per-view that took place on Saturday. You're gonna see more of this here, for this particular event. So definitely looking forward to that. And like I said, we'll get more information, as things come up there. So pretty much want to see how things turn out for that. But Houston, June 22nd. That pretty much is a good look. It's a good look. But that's what we got on that. And before I go into the next topic there, because we got of course a fight card that's going to be in Las Vegas, the Fontainebleau Las Vegas, on Saturday. I'm going to go through that particular card, but before that, we also had that came down today officially the undercard lineup for Devin Haney versus Ryan Garcia. As we have in the co-feature bout, Arnold Barbosa Jr. going up against Sean McComb. There, you got Barbosa at 29-0, of course, with 11 wins by way of knockout, and Sean McComb is 18-1 with 5 wins by way of knockout. So you have Sean McComb they have him ranked number 8 in the WBO. Barbosa is ranked number 1 in the WBO, and this is for the WBO Intercontinental title there at 140 pounds. So at least you have that kind of like linked up or matched up and whatnot. So that's one bout that's going to be on the pay-per-view card. And also you're going to have Beck the Bully or Bekmatir Melikuziev going up against Pierre de Bombe. Yeah. And shout out to Dan the Boxing Man on Twitter. He kind of like posted this or leaked out this undercard. And I think some people kind of like pointed out to this particular matchup with Beck Melikuziev and Pierre de Bombe is some like I don't know about all this one, man. I don't know about this one. They could have had a better matchup out there within the super middleweight division than this one. I think especially with Beck Melikuziev. You have a few fighters out there that probably were available that they could have matched up, man, for this. They even have Sergey. Shoot, you could have still had like Bekmatir against Sergey Derevianchenko, man. Like Derevianchenko's still in the rankings here at super middleweight, so you could have still had that. But yeah, this one here, man. Like I said, man, this Pierre de Bombe at 22-0 with 12 wins by way of knockout. Yeah, I don't see him anywhere in any of these rankings here for super middleweight. So, and they got this as the WBA Intercontinental Super Middleweight Championship fight. Yeah, this wild, yo. I don't know. Maybe they'll put Pierre in the rankings, in the top 15 of the WBA rankings soon or something, because this is wild, yo. This is definitely wild. And then you got WBA Interim Super Flyweight Championship, Jean Ramirez versus David Jimenez. That's going to be another fight that's on this card. With John Ramirez there at super flyweight is undefeated at 13-0 with 9 KOs, and David Jimenez is 15-1 with 11 wins by way of knockout. I mean, this is what you got here in the Golden Boy card. I'm gonna go through that super flyweight rankings there, man. You got, like I said, John Ramirez is the top rated fighter in the WBA rankings, number 1, below the champion there, Kazuto Ioka. And David Jimenez is ranked at number 5 in the WBA. So you got 2 guys within the top 5 in the rankings of the WBA that will be facing each other there for the interim super flyweight world championship. So they will have this happen, and the winner will kind of like waiting to go ahead and face Kazuto Ioka, I guess, there. And then also you're going to have Charles Conwell in there with his first bout while being under Golden Boy Promotions, and he will go up against Nathaniel Gallimore. So we got these 2 fighters in there. Of course, Conwell is undefeated. He's ranked number 1 in the WBC there in the 154-pound division, going up against Nathaniel Gallimore, who has had some notable fighters there at 154 pounds. So he's going to be right in there or in the mix, trying to see if he could hand Charles Conwell his first loss there. But that's the total fight card, at least for the pay-per-view there on the zone for April 20th there. So that's just a couple of weeks away. for Devin Haney versus Ryan Garcia over at the Barclays Center. And there you go. You have, what is it? One, two, three, four fight cards or four fights that'll be part of that pay-per-view card there. I know that there's been some people that have kind of criticized this particular fight card, that they probably could have had some better matchups to build towards this fight between Devin Haney and Ryan Garcia there. But hey, this is this is what they got. Yeah, my thing was, yeah, I have no idea who Sean McComb is. I'll have to look into how many or what fights he's kind of like had here up to this point. And then also, the whole thing with Pierre de Bombay. Of course, that says that, hey, he's likely had all of his fights over in France. So I'm gonna verify. Well, no, not necessarily, man. He's had a fight over in Canada. And his last bout was in Atlantic City in June June. So he's kind of been in the mix there as far as like fighting in Canada and fighting in Atlantic City, but he's rated at not even in the top 100 in the super middleweight division, according to BoxRec. So yeah, that kind of like shows you what's going down. The thing with Scrappy, man, John Scrappy Ramirez, he will be on there against David Jimenez. That'll be for the WBA interim super flyweight title, like I was mentioning. And you got, of course, John Ramirez is currently ranked number 1 in the WBA. David Jimenez is ranked number 5 in the WBA rankings. You have the world champion there, Kazuto Ioka. And, with this particular bout being for the WBA interim super flyweight championship, it will kind of like put the winner in position to, try to go after Kazuto Ioka for that full world title. But, for me, I'm thinking with Ioka, they might see if they could do a unification between him and Kosei Tanaka there for the WBA and WBO. We already know about the WBC champion Juan Francisco Estrada going up against Jesse Bam Rodriguez. That's supposed to be, I think, in June, at the end of June or something like that. So that kind of like shapes up what's happening there in the super flyweight division. But yeah, Scrappy Ramirez versus David Jimenez are there for the interim WBA super flyweight title. That will be coming up there. So you do have that, man. But yeah, that's the card there for the pay-per-view on April 20th. I mean, y'all can go ahead and share your thoughts on that. I know I've seen a couple of comments reference to it. There, some people are really disappointed in the fight card. I kind of gave some suggestions as to possible matchups that they could have had with some of the people that they have featured here for this card. And it's we'll have to get through it. I just say that we'll have to get through it. The thing with Barbosa, I probably couldn't really give you that many other potential fighters that he could have fought there that could be on this card, because some of these guys that are in the rankings out there, particularly in the WBO, they are either preoccupied or they would have had some fights going on and they just didn't necessarily work out, So that's what I got on that, man. But yeah, that's the whole situation there with that card on April 20th. I wanted to get into what's next up, of course, with the fight card that's on the zone through Matchroom Boxing. Of course, Richardson Hitchins going up against Gustavo Lemos. It's supposed to be an IBF eliminator bout. 2 undefeated fighters. You have Richardson Hitchins at 17-0, Gustavo Lemos at 29-0. Lemos has 29 wins, 19 wins by way of knockout. is there as an orthodox fighter at 5'5.5". Richardson Hitchins there at 17-0 with 7 wins by way of knockout, with a height of 5'10" and a reach of 74. And he is coming off of his win over Jose Cepeda, where he scored a unanimous decision win. There was a near shutout win there for him against Jose Cepeda. But here with Gustavo Lemos, it's going to be a good scrap between these two. Like I said, with Lemos, he's there with the amount of wins that he has there, with 19 wins by way of knockout. He's there's Argentinian fighter. There's I feel like a number of these Argentinian fighters are very tough to deal with, very tough to go around. You know what I'm saying? So there's that, man. He says Scrappy is a very good fighter. Yeah, man. He's gonna get try to make his name there in the super flyweight division. And if he's able to make a statement here against David Jimenez and get that interim super flyweight title, then you'll see him try to get in position, like I said, to fight for a full world title. So we're gonna see how he does here on April 20th there against David Jimenez, and then we'll see what happens after that. Sure, always, hey, that's the thing, man. We got, of course, how some fight fans are, they, kind of like focus on certain divisions, could be the old school divisions, you have, lightweight, welterweight, middleweight, heavyweight, those divisions, they focus on fighters that are on those, but you have, of course, good fights that happen in, like I said, super flyweight, bantamweight, super bantamweight. Of course, one of the top pound for pound fighters in the sport has kind of like built up from the flyweight division coming up to the super bantamweight division up to this point, or at least for now, in Nairo Inoue. So you definitely get a number of talented fighters there within those weight classes. You just got to get enough attention there for, those fighters to kind of like get the limelight that, they deserve. Of course, you have, what was it, years back, there's particularly in the super flyweight division, you had like Chocolatito Gonzalez. Of course, you have now Juan Francisco Estrada, that's still doing this thing there in the super flyweight division, but also, we got Ben Rodriguez that's coming up. That's, won a title at super flyweight and, one of these titles at flyweight as well, so number of good fighters there within those divisions. Just got to be able to have, I feel like more fans should kind of like have their eyes on those divisions to see the action that happens there. So that's my thing on that. Back to the fight there, the main event that's coming up April 6th at the Fontainebleau, Las Vegas. That's a brand new, resort or whatever it is there in Las Vegas, and Las Vegas Boulevard. So it's gonna be an interesting look. But back to the thing there with Richardson Hitchins, kind of like had the question up there. Is he ready to step up and pretty much like say, hey, you know what, I'm ready to be one of the leading contenders there for a world title at 140 pounds. He's kind of talked about potentially fighting the likes of a Devin Haney or the likes of the current IBF champion there, Subriel Matias. And with this kind of like says like, hey, the winner kind of like stands out as the leading contender for the IBF title, and Subriel Matias is planning to have his fight in the summer against Liam Perro. So if he gets to that particular fight, then yeah, maybe you could see the winners face each other. But with Hitchins, he's there, like I said, number 3 currently in the IBF, but it's a top rated fighter in the IBF. He's number 3 in the WBO. He's number 2 in the WBC. So he's kind of like almost there, next up. Big ups to Just Do Boxing in the building. Just Do Boxing. What's happening with you, man? Y'all check out Just Do Boxing on YouTube. He puts in work pretty much like every single day here on YouTube. he talks about various topics on the sport of boxing. Y'all check out Just Do Boxing if you haven't done so already, man. Peace to you, man. Yeah, back to the joint there with Hitchins. I mean, I think that he's one of those guys that you kind of like say could be one of the better contenders out there in the super lightweight division. Did mention his win over Jose Zepeda, which was his last fight. He pretty much pitched a shutout in that one. He won some minor titles there in the super lightweight division with that particular win. But he kind of like, I guess some people may not be all too enthused about his fighting style and that type of thing. So, I kind of like say, like, if he's able to have an impressive performance against Gustavo Lemos here, would that like give him more momentum towards angling for a world title shot? Whether it's later this year or sometime next year, we'll see. But this is something where, okay, he's the headline here at this fight card in Las Vegas. So he's going to have the eyes on him, on this thing. You know what I'm saying? So I would say, like, go ahead and show up and show out. I mean, you kind of like been mentioned as, one of those guys at 140 pounds that could, make some noise. While you do have the world champions out there, of course, Devin Haney there, WBC champ, I mentioned him. He got the fight with Ryan Garcia. Teofimo Lopez is there as a WBO champ. They say that they have what was it, Steve Claggett as his potential next opponent. I hope not. And then of course you have newly crowned champion Isak Pitbull Cruz that beat up Rolando Romero on Saturday to win that WBA title. And then you also have like I said, other contenders out there: Kenneth Sims Jr., Gary Antoine Russell. I did mention Arnold Barbosa Jr. That's going to have a fight there on April 20th. Jose Carlos Ramirez is still out there as a former world champion. Jermaine Ortiz, had that fight with Teofimo Lopez. Former champs still out there. Regis Prograis and Josh Taylor. Even though I don't think Josh Taylor is gonna hang around 140 that much longer anyway. But y'all can name a good number of other fighters out there at 140 that could be potential world title contenders. But Richardson Hitchins is out there as one of those guys that could be one of the top fighters among there. And he's kind of checked out a few of these fighters out there at 140. He's talked about Arnold Barbosa. He's talked about Jose Carlos Ramirez. He's talked about even world champion Teofimo Lopez, and had his whole thing in reference to Subriel Matias that some people thought that he was like saying, what, yeah, I might have a problem with the whole rehydration there for the IBF, but he's just saying, like, he's just trying to clear it up, like saying that it'll be something for him to deal with, but he'll be able to handle it, against Subriel Matias. So if that fight potentially happens, then hey, he'll say, what, I'll be ready to go with that rehydration clause and still be able to perform at an optimal level against Subriel Matias. But he first has to take care of business against Gustavo Lemos, who, like I said, they're from Argentina. This will be his first bout over here in the United States. So this is something where this is a definite step up fight as far as like skills are concerned for Gustavo Lemos. Yes, he does have an undefeated record there at 29-0. He did beat Lee Selby in 2022. That's pretty much like the most notable opponent that he has here on his record is Lee Selby. For those that follow UK boxing, that's definitely there. Lee Selby, who was a former world champion there, but that was like at the featherweight division. So yeah, he went up from featherweight up to lightweight, and had his bouts against George Kambosos Jr. and then Gustavo Lemos here. So that's the thing with Lemos. He has that one win over a notable fighter here so far, but then here against Richardson Hitchins, I kind of like feel like it's something where Hitchins should be able to be a considerable favorite in this matchup. And, I want to see if I can hit up the odds there real quick on it. I'm going to hit up DraftKings. Let's see what they have as far as like the current odds for this particular fight. Let me see what they got up here for this one, man. They got Richardson Hitchins as a minus 750 favorite and Gustavo Lemos at plus 500. So yeah, that's really significant odds there. Like I said, with Lemos, yeah, he's undefeated there, 29-0, but yeah, with that, with these type of odds, yeah, that's wild. They got, of course, leaning towards Hitchins by decision. They're at minus 145 as far as like the fight outcome is concerned. Plus 190 for Richardson Hitchins by knockout. So that's what you got as far as like the current odds so far for this particular matchup. But them significantly favoring Richardson Hitchins to have this win over Gustavo Lemos. Yeah, I think this is something where Hitchins is going to have to see if he could go ahead and get the stoppage on this, man. I feel like if he wants to angle towards getting some buzz towards being a serious contender for a world title, he needs to go ahead and stop this man. Not just school him up, but stop this man. And that's going to be one thing that he'll have to look out for in this one, is to try to get a stoppage there against Gustavo Lemos. I know that leading into this particular weekend, some people have kind of like boosted up this particular matchup. But when you see odds like that, yeah, they're having Hitchins as a significant favorite in this, and that's going to lead towards me saying like, yeah, Hitchins should be able to get the win, and it should be fairly easy for him, given the odds there. Like I said with the tail of the tape there, he's significantly taller there, and has of course a longer reach, so it's gonna be like something where he probably will try to duplicate what he did against Jose Zepeda in this last fight, but he needs more than that. He would need more than that, I feel, to really like say, hey, you know what? He has a real good chance to go up against a number of these champions out here, and kind of like say like he will really compete against them and potentially beat one of these champions here at 140 pounds. So that's my whole tail of the tape there for that particular fight. That's the lead fight there in Las Vegas. That's coming up on Saturday. That will be live on the Zone. Yes, this is a Matchroom boxing card live on the Zone. You got in the co-feature bout Diego Pacheco, undefeated there at 20-0, going up against Sean McCalman there at 15-0 in the super middleweight division. Diego Pacheco is one of those fighters that is highly coming up the ranks there at super middleweight. He's number 5 in the WBCs, number 5 in the IBF. He's number 2 in the WBO. And this is a fighter that I kind of like said he should be a fighter there that's undefeated that should fight the likes of Edgar Berlanga. I said this after Berlanga's last fight, that Berlanga and Diego Pacheco should be able to match up and have a fight with each other, like two undefeated guys, two young undefeated fighters there in the super middleweight division, going up against each other there to kind of like say, hey, we're clearing things out there within that top 10 in the super middleweight division. That would be a good matchup. But Berlanga here, Pacheco has his fight coming up against Sean McCalman, who is there at 6 feet, 30 years old, and is coming from the Denver area there. He's, like I said, 15-0 with 7 wins by way of knockout. And, of course, Diego Pacheco there at 20-0 with 17 wins by way of knockout. His last win was against Marcelo Caceres there in Inglewood, California, where, he had a, pretty rough bout coming from this one where he got a couple head clashes in that bout, but he was able to deal with all of that and still get a stoppage or knockout victory there over Marcelo Caceres. But like I said, he's one of those up and coming fighters there at super middleweight that we would definitely want to look out for out there at super middleweight. And here with this bout, I see him, kind of like seeing if he could, have another impressive performance there. And even with these odds, like you don't even want to, you don't even want to touch these odds, at least for this one. They got Pacheco at -1600, -1600, and Sean McCollum at +900. Yeah, I tell you, man, some of these matchups sometimes you can't really say you like we don't know like what's gonna go down because these odds is just like crazy wide. There, no diddy. But yeah, like -1600 in favor of Diego Pacheco. Yeah, that kind of like makes it a matchup where you expect Pacheco to really kind of like have a clear win there over Sean McCollum because this is definitely a difference in skill level as they would say when you have that type of matchup with those type of odds it's a much what I would say a big difference when it comes to a skill level perspective when you have that type of matchup with those odds. But yeah, that's going to be the co-feature bout there in this card. You also will have Galal Yafai against Augustin Gauto for the WBC International Flyweight title. You also will have Mark Castro in this bout against Abraham Montoya. Sky Nicholson will be going up against Sarah Mahfoud for the vacant WBC featherweight title there. So you could have Sky Nicholson try to become a world champion there going up against Sarah Mahfoud. You'll also have Steven Navarro in his pro debut against Jose Lopez. And you got Harley Medeiros undefeated at 5-0 against Pedro Vicente with a record of 7 wins, 6 losses, and 1 draw. So yeah, that is the fight card that is coming up April 6th there, and that's the thing about it, man. Is it or you talk about the odds when it comes to these matchups with like I said with the Pacheco versus Sean McCollum and Richardson Hitchins versus Gustavo Lemos, like those odds are really crazy. Like I was saying, I mean, when you have Hitchins at a -750 against Gustavo Lemos at +500, and they're two undefeated fighters, and like I said, Hitchins is rated as high as he is. They're within those sanctioning bodies. That kind of shows you something, but it's even worse there with Diego Pacheco and Sean McCollum with Pacheco as a -1600. Like that, man, like you can't really get nothing off that. Shoot, even with the Sky Nicholson bout, like they got Sky Nicholson at -1100 and Sarah Mahfoud at +650. So it's like, yeah, that's crazy odds, man. It's crazy odds there. But that being said, that's kind of like the card there that's coming up on April 6th. I did talk about the fight card that was just announced, a completed fight card for April 20th. That's at the that's going to be at the Barclays Center. There with that Devin Haney versus Ryan Garcia. So they got that full fight card that's on there. So that's mainly the action that's coming up in April. You got like I said, what's coming up on Saturday. You got the following Saturday on April 13th. Top Rank does have their fight card. You're gonna have Jared Anderson against Riyad Murray. You're gonna have Efe Ajagba versus Guido Vianello, and also Abdullah Mason is gonna be on that card. Robeson Conceição's on the card. Ruben Villa's on the card, as well. So you're gonna have action pretty much like every weekend here in the month of April. So got some good fights here and there for this month to kind of like look out for. You got some prospects to look out for and things like that. So just be on the lookout for all of that right there. That's coming up here in the month of April in the sport of boxing. But we just gotta follow up what's going on with other big news. Of course, some people still talking about the results from last Saturday. Of course, with Sebastian Fundora getting the decision win over Tim Tszyu, to win the WBO and WBC super welterweight titles. Folks still talking about the whole thing with Errol Spence Jr. coming in the ring, to challenge Sebastian Fundora. About the news with the WBO, all that. So there's that. Oh yeah. The Edgar Berlanga versus Diego Pacheco. Yeah, I was saying that. Ever since Edgar Berlanga's last fight that he had. What was that over in Orlando? That he had that fight against McCrory. Yeah, that was over in Orlando, right? Like ever since that particular fight, that's what I was calling for, because y'all heard it. It was like Edgar Berlanga. They were trying to say, "Oh, we need to fight Canelo next. We need to fight Canelo," and I'm like, no. You ain't anywhere near that level yet. So slow down with all that. See if you can fight a guy like a Diego Pacheco and how you would fare against a Diego Pacheco before we even like mention you kind of like being among the 5 contenders or whatever it is at super middleweight. Is we can't even mention when David Morrell Jr. was in the arena there in Orlando, and he was like mentioning Berlanga as a potential opponent. And then when someone asked Berlanga about David Morrell, he did not want any parts of that question. So that kind of like shows you the direction of where Edgar Berlanga is at this particular point. He's like saying, "Hey, I want a big money fight there with Canelo, but I ain't willing to go up against any of these other guys that are coming up as a contender." You know what I'm saying? That's it. You know what I'm saying? He says like Hitchins is overdue. Haitian roots. Yeah, we have a lot of Haitians here now, and they're good people. It's funny. So, yeah. I mean, hey, man, I should get my guy in here, man. I should have asked him if he was gonna jump in here. One of my guys is a of course Haitian there. Zoe, shout out to Lord Zoe. Let me see. I don't know if he'll be able to get on here. I'm gonna see if he's available or something like that, because I actually do want to see if I can get comments from him, at least for the bout that's coming up with Richardson Hitchins. But yeah, Hitchins is a very, very good fighter there. Of course, they're in the 140-pound division, but they got like a lot of fighters, as I mentioned. They're at 140, and so Hitchins right now, he's kind of like one of the fighters at 140 that's knocking on the door. He's knocking on the door, and so I feel like he needs a really good performance here against Gustavo Lemos to like kind of get that buzz going. I did mention there with Subriel Matias, he has that fight that's coming up over in Puerto Rico in the summer to defend the IBF title, and so if he gets through that, then you might see Hitchins versus Subriel Matias. And that would be a good sound matchup, particularly there for Subriel Matias to go up against a guy with a style like Richardson Hitchins. So we'll see how that goes. You said, yeah, Mason's wicked. Abdullah Mason, man, I'm telling you, man, Abdullah Mason is really, really a impressive young fighter there. Of course, at 19, he's undefeated at 12-0. We seen him with that knockout victory there in February. I'm telling you, if he's able to, he might have like 2 fights after this coming up in April, and he might be the leading candidate for the prospect of the year. He might be the leading candidate for prospect of the year, so to speak. So I mean, we'll see. But some say that he may be ready, ready to compete with some of the top contenders out there in the lightweight division right now. I don't think they're gonna match him up like that, but we'll see how that goes, man. But Abdullah Mason is one of the better young fighters out there that we've seen. Of course, we had another young fighter out there with Cormel Bolton that was out on March 30th. That was part of that card on March 30th in Las Vegas. That had probably one of the better fights of the card. There, even though it was like 8 rounds, but it was one of the better fights of the card. But I was very impressed by Cormel Bolton in that fight that he had there against Anthony Cuba. Matt Gomez says Caleb Plant versus David Morrell. If I hit up David Morrell's trainer right now and kind of mention this to him, they would say, "Nah, Caleb isn't. Nah, I don't see it." Some folks have kind of like dropped the mention or hint that it could be David Morrell Jr. versus Demetrius Andrade. As of right now, Morrell's camp hasn't heard any word about that being, put together. So, there's that, man. I mean, I don't know, man. San Diego, man, I only been in San Diego once. Real talk. I've only been in San Diego once, and I was out there around the downtown area or whatnot, man. So I ain't really see how much is out there around the city of San Diego. But if they do, man, I don't know. Next time I go out that way, I'm gonna see if I could see what's up. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm pretty much like from the Florida area, and you got a bunch of them over in Florida, particularly in South Florida, of course. So, but yeah, San Diego, I wouldn't have necessarily would have known like if there were like a lot of Haitians out there in San Diego. So that's a good little nugget there, man. I'm gonna see if I can check that out next time I'm out there in San Diego. But back to the thing that you were mentioning there, Matt, with Caleb Plant and David Morrell Jr. Yeah, nah, that's out. As of what was it, like last year or whatever it was, like ever since Plant's lost to David Benavidez, it looked like the thing with Caleb Plant was like they weren't necessarily interested in getting them back in the mix against like one of them top contenders like that. So we'll see what's going to happen there with Caleb Plant, because you do have a number of contenders out there in super middleweight. Of course, you do have that potential grudge match with Caleb Plant and Jamal Charlo. That could be a possibility. But other than that, haven't really seen like anyone mention like Plant versus Morrell. Nah, I haven't seen that be anywhere near being mentioned there in the super middleweight division. You know what I'm saying? So, that's the thing I got on that. But that's mainly it. What I got here as far as like what's going down in the midweek report. Big ups for everyone that's joined in on Twitter and also on YouTube. If you can, just give the video a like if you enjoy the content here on either one of the social media platforms. You could go on YouTube and look up the Boxing Source on YouTube, and be sure to follow, hit the subscribe button on YouTube. We appreciate the support here on the Boxing Source, and try to get more content on here. We're gonna be see if we could work on getting some more interviews here. I want to follow up with Haven Brady Jr. after his win that took place on last Friday, and then also with Elijah Garcia with his stoppage win on Friday. So I want to follow up with those two fighters there. Quick one. He said, Matt says, Broner can't get a matchup. Hey, I mean, he looks like he's out there in the gym, out there with Kevin Cunningham right now. They're saying like he'll potentially face Blair the Flair Cobbs or whatever it is, but I haven't seen anything that's official on that. But we'll see. But yeah, with that being said, that's the action here so far with the midweek report. Big ups for everyone here that's been able to join in live on this particular report. We'll get back at it with the Boxing Source podcast on Sunday night there. So you'll be able to follow us through this particular channel here on YouTube, the Boxing Source on YouTube. Of course, they have the Boxing Source on Twitter and also on Instagram there, so you can follow us on that as well. But we're going to try to get more content here for y'all to enjoy, and be sure to, like I said, spread the word. Hit the like button, hit the follow button, hit the subscribe button here, and spread the word. We will continue to try to cover the sport of boxing as much as we can here, and we'll see about getting to some of these events, particularly in the East Coast here within the next month or so, and then hopefully we'll see a month from now if we do make it to Vegas for that event there with Canelo versus Munguia. And of course, they also have the Box Fan Expo that's next month as well. So hopefully I'll be able to get in on the Box Fan Expo and, chat with a few of the, former boxers or current boxers that will be at the Box Fan Expo. That will be on Saturday, May 4th. Yeah, that's supposed to be it. So that's what we got. But with that being said, once again, y'all go ahead and spread the word with the Boxing Source. We'll get more content here for you, and I'll catch y'all later. Peace out.